Hello everyone! Welcome to the video. My name is Philip, and today we're going to be looking at It. Welcome to Derry, Season 1, and we're going to find out just how good or bad was it. And in order to do this, we're going to be looking at 5 categories. The acting, the plot, the look, the pacing, and the wild card, aka my personal opinion. Each category will have a maximum score of 10 for a potential total score of 50. And by the end, we'll discover, does Welcome to Derry float or does it pop like a red balloon? Before we get into the categories, I do want it to be said that I have obviously seen Season 1, but I have done reviews for every episode for the season on the channel. So if you want to go check those out first, you're more than welcome to. But this is just going to be the season scored, just to see, where it falls. And if you have seen those episodes, you kind of already know how I feel about the season. Pennywise, shut up. And let's start with the acting. The acting, for the most part, was the definition of fine. It was fine. But I saw a lot of hate online leveraged towards the young cast. I personally don't think they did a bad job. As a whole. I do think some of the characters were a little one note, a little flat. In particular, I think the character of Ronnie was probably the most one-dimensional of the season. Only because she had the same pouty, angry face for like 99% of the show. But I'm not going to blame the actress for that if that's the direction she was given. If that's how she's told to play the character, then that's how you play the character. But then you have the character of Lily, and Lily, again, was fine, but also felt like Lily was directed to, either look like you're on the verge of tears or be in tears. And I think the problem with both of these portrayals is it just felt very flat. Very, as said, one note. But I can't say for sure that I would blame the talent involved for that, as much as I would blame Andy Muschietti for the direction. Because maybe that's how he envisioned the characters. And if so, again, it is a big ball of fine. But I think it did a disservice to both of these characters for being one note and flat. And yeah, Ronnie was perpetually pouting. Lily was perpetually on the verge of tears. That being said, I think we need to give a massive shout out to the character of Marge. Because we saw Marge go from someone who was trying so hard to fit in with the Mean Girls, with the patty cakes, to someone who got traumatized by Pennywise, and then spent the rest of the season doing her best to make up for it. I think she had a really good arc from being, a bully in training to being someone that had a redemption arc for her character and became sympathetic by the end. She wasn't one note. She wasn't flat. She wasn't just constantly making one face or doing one thing. Because early on, she was, snide and mean-spirited. Or she was terrified. Or she was, genuinely heartfelt. Or she was traumatized. Or she was... She just felt like the most complete character in the show for me. And then you have, Will. I thought the actor who played Will did a fine job. I think Will had a lot more to deal with. As far as a character, he felt like a more complete character. Not as complete as Marge, because Marge had a character arc. And by the end of the final episode, you understood why. We understood what was going on with Marge's character. Will was fine. But I think the actor who played Will did what he could with the material he was given. And you could say the same thing for Ronnie and Lily. They did what they could with what they were given. But, Marge was the MVP as far as the New Losers Club goes. And then we have the character of Rich, but I'm going to save him a little more for the plot. But as far as the Losers Club goes, I think that they were fine. If I had to rate them, I would say, you know, 1 would have been Marge, 2 would have been Will, 3 would have been Rich, 4 would have been Lily, and 5 would have been Ronnie. That's how I would have rated the new Losers Club. But that's just me, personally. If you had to rate them, you know, how would you have rated them? But as far as the adult cast goes, I mean, Pennywise, obviously, stole the show. Bill Skarsgård was born to play this role just from the way he can move his eyes in 2 different directions. Like, one can be way over here, and one can be here. That's creepy. The fact that he can just drool on command is creepy. You know, I think Bill Skarsgård always kills it in the role of Pennywise. Aside from Pennywise, though, my favorite performance of all of them, including Marge, I liked Marge, but she wasn't my favorite performance all season. My favorite performance all season belongs to Halloran. I think that character was written so cool, but the actor did such a good job of bringing this character to life. From feeling like a tortured soul, to someone being used by the military, to that scene with him and Daniel when he was going into his mind, and just the little expressions he would do, and that movement he made with his hands as it crossed his face was just so threatening and so well done. But other people did fine too. You had Hanlon and Charlotte, Will's parents. They did fine. You had Mr. Grogan, Ronnie's dad. He did fine in his role of, you know, wrongfully accused guy who was on the run and was trying to fight for his freedom, but also wanted to still be there for his daughter. And I like that. And then you had the military stuff, which was, you know, we'll get into that in a few minutes. So overall, I think I would give acting a 7 out of 10. Let's move on to the plot. This is a tale of 2 halves. On part 1, we have all the Pennywise stuff. This looks like a ball sack. It's supposed to be his eyes and his makeup. Okay. Anyway, on one half we have all the Pennywise stuff, and on the other half we have like all of the, this is supposed to be a bomb, go with it, all of the military stuff. And this is where the disconnect for me comes from. This felt like they took an idea of Pennywise. You know, we have the clown here and the military here. We're going to put kids here and motivation. We're going to abbreviate that. So we have the clown, right? Pennywise dealing with the kids, which is always like the stronger parts of the story. It was the strongest part of the book. It was the strongest part of the TV series back in the day. It was the strongest half of the movies. And I think that, again, it holds true that the strongest parts were when Pennywise deals with the kids. It felt like that the people involved who wrote this didn't think they had enough meat on the bone to justify an entire season of just this. So we threw in this MacGuffin to pad out the runtime. I think the absolute worst part of season 1 was everything involving the military. And there are a couple reasons why. One is, as I wrote over there, it's over there now, is the motivation. You know, they wanted to, we're just going to draw some hair, because every time I try and draw Pennywise's face, it looks like a ball sack. So they wanted to trap Pennywise. Originally, they wanted to, you know, we had like all these things around him. They wanted to make the cage smaller to box him in, and then to try and use him for their nefarious means. So motivation A was, at worst, just, I don't know, like a MacGuffin. I can't spell MacGuffin. MacGuffin. That is a C. C. A MacGuffin. We have B. Now A already felt a little, okay, this is kind of stupid. But then later on, we get to, oh, this is what we're really doing, which was the opposite of this, which was to take one of these out completely and let Pennywise out into the USA. It went from a silly, absurd MacGuffin to RFS. Really fucking stupid. I stand by this. I think the military stuff was so freaking dumb. did an absolute disservice to the entire story. You could have removed the military stuff completely, retooled everything to deal with all of the little totems and shards and whatnot. You could have had Pennywise get in someone's head and making them unearth one of them to get him out. You could have rewritten it in a way that you could have still had this kind of plot, but omitted everything about the military completely. You would have had to have rewritten, Halloran and Hanlon and Charlotte and everyone associated with that side of things. But it could have been done. You still could have had Charlotte be this, this activist, this person who was fighting for racial equality. You could have had Hanlon. You still could have had the military. Just don't include this. Keep the clown and the military completely separate. The motivation behind it to keep the entire population complacent, that's not what's going to happen, dude. Like, it was just stupid. It was just RFS. It actively irritates me. I think that the military stuff was an albatross around the neck of the season. The season would have been so much better if they had eliminated this connection completely. The military stuff, and the clown, just sever that connection completely. Rework it a little bit. The military can still be there if you need it to be, but just don't make these two things intertwined. Make it so that the military is trying to stop this from happening. Make it so Shaw remembers what happened, and he's like, I don't want this getting out. I've done some research, and I found out it happens every 27 years, so I'm here to stop him. Then you have all of the kids working to stop Pennywise. You bring the military working with the kids to stop Pennywise, which opens up new avenues of plot for Hanlon and Charlotte and Will. They can do some stuff together. And then it's everyone against Pennywise, which does two things. One, it makes the military more tolerable. And two, the most important, it makes Pennywise a bigger threat because you have everyone now working to stop it. How are they going to do it? Because it is essentially, in its own words, a god. It is powerful. It has supernatural abilities. How do you stop that? But to have the military want to weaponize it? What? It's so dumb. Like, this could have worked on some level, I think, but they just didn't do a very good job with it. And anytime the military came on the screen during the season, it just killed the momentum they were going for. That and something else, we're going to get to that next. But the military stuff, seriously, it was a ball and chain around the entire season. And then I think once you found out, their entire motivation, it just became dumb as f***. And yeah, I didn't like it. And it actively detracted from the season, made me unhappy. Maybe I'm being a snowflake. I don't care. So the plot, on one hand, the Pennywise stuff was fine for the most part. The military stuff, just steaming pile of meh. So I'm going to give the plot a 5 out of 10. This might be a little controversial because parts of, Pennywise were so strong, but this whole thing just dragged it down to a mid-level. And even to the end, it was just so dumb. Like the thing on the river with them wanting to get past the deadwood tree. But the military shows up and they gotta shoot people and whatnot. Yeah, I don't know. It's a 5. It's mid to me. It's mid to me. This could have been a lot better, and it should have been. All right, let's move on to the look. The look, which is the cinematography or I can't spell today. CGI, if any. And if any is going to be in quotations. Oh my god. Let's talk about the elephant. See what I did there? The elephant in the room. The CGI. Holy hell. I got some blowback on the CGI. People saying that it was a supernatural creature, therefore the CGI shouldn't look authentic. I do not agree. We would have these moments of terror, of absolute horror happening, and then they were undercut by just absurdity. Like, you had the scene of Lily being chased through the supermarket and the aisles were closing on her, which is such a cool visual. And then you get to the end and she's boxed in and it's ruined by freaking Pickle Rick. That scene right there encapsulates my entire problem with the CGI as a whole. I forgave it in parts. You had young Shaw and young Rose in the woods being chased by Pennywise, and it wasn't just a occasional thing, it was all the time. It was a few times an episode. Like, season 1 starts where this kid is running away from home and gets picked up by this creepy family. It was really creepy and it was really interesting. But then it's undercut by, like, evil demon bat baby. Like, how can anyone look at that and think that was like, yay? How? It wasn't. The CGI was bad. It was bad. And my problem with the CGI is, if you think about it in terms of like, let's say Spinal Tap, which, speaking of, Rob Reiner just passed away as of this recording, so, you know, rest in peace, sir. You were absolutely a part of my childhood and my adult life, and from Spinal Tap to Princess Bride to Stand By Me, you were amazing. So, yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. But in terms of Spinal Tap, you know, there was that joke that, you know, this one goes to 11. Well, why not stop at 10? Well, this goes to 11. That's a good thing and a bad thing. If you want to go to 11 as far as noise, Nigel, knock yourself out. But I think the problem with this season and the CGI was that they went to 11 too many times. If they had dialed back the CGI just a bit and didn't go overboard with it, it would have been better. Like, we could have had the weird creature in the woods, but do we need the demon baby thing popping out? We could have had Pickle Rick, but did it need to turn into, like, a Voltron of pickles that turned into her dad? We could have had the scene with Ronnie's mom in the bedroom, but did it need to go as far as it did with, like, the teeth and the rawr and all of that? It just took it too far all the time. It ruined any tension or horror you were trying to build with absurdity. I think the season suffered from leaning into absurdity way too much and assuming that the strength of Pennywise and the strength of the kids being tormented was going to be good enough. It just wasn't. I could go on, go check out the reviews of the episodes. I give examples and all that stuff. But yeah, CGI. Well, I was going to write CGI, but it's actually look. The look of the film, the cinematography, other than that, was okay. But man, that CGI just was... it was bad. It was really bad. So this is going to be controversial, I know. But for the budget they had, and for being on HBO Max, this should have been stellar. And it was not. Pennywise, in and of himself, should have been enough. Even like when he opened his mouth to go rawr, and the teeth and his eyes go weird. They didn't think that looked funny. They didn't think that looked kind of like silly. And they would and they would hold on the shot. They would hold on the shot for a long time. And it's just I can't with the CGI in this. I can't. If it was just cinematography, it would have been like a 7. But the CGI was a freaking 2. It was awful. All those together are 9 divided by 2 equals 4.5. That's what we're going to go with. I want to go 3. I'm rounding down to 4. And that is me being generous. All right. Category number 4, we have the pacing. The pacing was okay again. It all comes back to, let me find it. This. I think that Clowning Kids was fine. But then the pacing was always thrown off by the military crap. Like I said, this was a ball and chain around the season. And the pacing suffered. Also, in episode 1, we have what we think are the new Losers Club. And, you know, they die at the end of season 1. Everyone but Lily. And very violently. With bad CGI. Think about how much better that theater scene in episode 1 would have been if we didn't have demon CGI baby flying around and all the bad CGI stuff. If it was practical, I've already talked, see, I'm saying this should have been lower, but I'm gonna all right, back to pacing. I want to rant about CGI some more, but I'm not going to. The point I was making was that I think after the people died in episode 1 to set up Lily as a survivor going into episode 2 and showing the trauma and Ronnie being there, and not necessarily seeing what happened, but being there for it in the projectionist booth. I think that was fine as far as a jumping off point, but it was like we start pacing in episode 1, we do this horrific stuff, then in episode 2, we have to start the pacing all over again because we had to introduce the new group over time, which I think they did a good job of. Like, again, Marge, I think introducing her slowly into the group was a very good idea, something I think they did really, really well. And I think that the military stuff, you know, to beat that dead horse, because Lord knows they did, but the military stuff just threw off the pacing so much. And I think had they just retooled it, like I said, you know, make the military work together with the kids to take on Pennywise, instead of this nonsense, had they worked together to make it happen, the pacing would have felt more organic. But it didn't. Anytime we started building towards something, we had to cut away to this absolute absurdity. And it just killed the pacing so much. Now, it didn't outright ruin everything. Like, I think the CGI absolutely ruined this show. And I still think 4 out of 10 was too high. I might... Oh, man, I want to go lower. But the military stuff definitely held it back. But other than that, I think the show flowed fine. So I'm going to give the pacing a 6 out of 10. It was fine. You take the military stuff out of it, it would have been better. As I will keep repeating that, because it was a thing. And finally, the wild card. My personal opinion. You kind of know where I stand on this now. Obviously, I've said over and over that the military was weak and stupid. The MacGuffin sides were absurd and just kind of silly. And then when their true motivation came in, it was like, what are we doing? This is so dumb. This is so... But I also know people who didn't mind it, who like the military aspect. And that's fine. You can. Opinions are not facts. My main thing, though, is that in the realm of antagonists, you're always going to have your main one, right? And the main one was the clown. It's called It. It's named after it. The clown is the main antagonist. But then we have another antagonist here with the military. Take a shot every time I say the word military. And I get that the show wanted to have dual antagonists. You know, 2 at the same time. But I think having 2 just really watered down. This is water. This is supposed to be rain. I don't know. Use your imagination. I don't have a blue marker. It's Pennywise. It'll be blood. Let's play along. As I said before, if the military and the kids had worked together versus Pennywise, this would have been something, because all these things combined would have equaled the enormity of this. But then we split this, and then these are on the same side working together. One is unknowingly doing it, but one is knowingly doing it. This just absolutely hinders not only the plot, the pacing, and my personal enjoyment, which is the wild card part. I think having the kids versus the military and versus Pennywise fractures the tension, fractures the plot too much. This show did not need 2 antagonists at all. It just needed one. The one it was named after. If we had done something akin to this right here, it would have worked so much better. You don't even need to rewrite the entire plot. You don't need to rewrite everything. Just, as I said earlier, retool some things, shift some stuff around. You can still have Halloran. You can still have Hanlon and Charlotte and Will and the military and all that stuff. Just retool the motivation, rework what they're trying to do. Make them all on the same page here. Think of it in terms of, like, this is about numbers, right? This is about rating. Think of it in terms of numbers. If the importance of the military is a 30 and the kids is a 70, that means the clown would equal 100, right? But no, it's not. If you have this versus this versus this can't be 100 then. This can't equal to this because these things are fighting. So the kids can't be that, right? Because the kids are the protagonists. They're the sole protagonists. With Hanlon and Halloran, you know, crossing over. This isn't going to be equal, and this has to be split into 3. So if we're going to be dividing it up, then and we want everyone to seem equal, then yeah, so the military and the kids would be 30, I mean, that means Pennywise will be 40. That's not how it should be. And this is because we're splitting it all up. If we were divided up with Pennywise being 100 and 30 and 70 like before, this is a strong season. This works. This does not work. 30, 30, 40 does not work. Mathematically does not work from storytelling. And I think the show suffered because of it. As much as I loved Marge, and as much as I loved Halloran and him being my favorite character, as much as I thought there were some really cool moments, especially in the last episode with Rich and what they did, I really like the character of Rich. I'm glad he was given some shine at the end. I like the reveal with Marge and Richie. I like all of that. The season had nice moments. The hangout of all of the black officers and burning it down was, I think, the most powerful 20 minutes of the entire season. Yes, people would have died of smoke inhalation way sooner and all that stuff. I will suspend disbelief in the realm of reality more than I would of an unreality of bad CGI. Then the first 20 minutes of the final episode where Pennywise was freed and wreaking havoc was also very strong. But strong moments do not a strong season make. And I think splitting the antagonists the way they did, this wasn't a complete misfire, far from it. I'm just saying that it wasn't as good as it could have been. I should have left this season absolutely anticipating season 2. I don't even know if I'm going to review it when it comes out. I'll watch it, but I just, like, do I want to review it? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see when we get there. Overall, if I had to sum up the entire season in one phrase, it was just a dropped ball. And that sucks. As someone that was really excited for this, that is a lifelong fan of Stephen King. I read my first Stephen King book when I was 8. I'm not 8 anymore. I'm very old. Like, actually, as of this recording, right now, it is my birthday. I'm recording this on my birthday. Just to think back when I was growing up reading Stephen King, and that was my guy, and I read through his books like crazy growing up as a kid. My love of horror is due to him. My first horror movie I ever saw was Children of the Corn. I did a video with Justin showing him that. So Stephen King has played a very important role in my life. So I was very excited for this. And this wasn't even an example of my expectations far out exceeding what I got in return. This was just something I was excited for that failed to hit the mark because ultimately, to me, it dropped the ball. So, the wild card, my personal opinion, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't great. I gotta go 6 out of 10. If you're looking at this, the strongest parts of the entire season was the acting, which I absolutely think, and everything else was just kind of mid. And even here, I still think I'm being very generous with the way this looked, because the CGI was embarrassing. So add everything up. Acting was a 7, plot was a 5, look was a 4, pacing was a 6, wild card was also a 6, which gives us a 28 out of 50, or a 56%, which I think is accurate for me. You may disagree with me completely, and that's fine. If you do, how would you have rated it? How would you have rated each section? What would your score have been? It was a perfectly acceptable season of television, but it was just a bit above average, and that's it. Good acting cannot save a poorly written season. And that's true of anything. Like, hell, look at Game of Thrones. People acted their asses off on that show, and in the end, bad writing hurt the show. Now, was season 1 of it as bad as season 8 of Game of Thrones? No, not at all. Maybe one day I should go through season 8 and do this format. All that being said, let's go on to some final thoughts. As I said, I think with shuffling some things around, this season could have been salvaged. I think had you brought the kids and the military more together against Pennywise, it would have made the struggle feel weightier, and it would have made the antagonist, the villain, feel more powerful. I do think they did a good job of building Pennywise up slowly. I didn't mention that, but I do think they did a good job of that. They paced that very well. He wasn't revealed in episode 1 as the clown. It took several episodes to get there, and I like that. That was good. The bad is so bad, from the military stuff to the CGI, that it just drags down anything else good. Because if you take the antagonist stuff away from the military and give it to Pennywise, yes, he becomes an even more capable villain, but he also has more to do. That should be the focus. And it wasn't. And it just didn't work for me. But keep in mind, these are all just my thoughts. As I said before, what did you think? Let me know how you would have rated it, because I can see a lot of people disagreeing with me. I know a lot of people really like this. I read some discourse online, and again, it's fair. Maybe I missed something that you liked or didn't like, or something that stuck out to you that I didn't talk about. If so, let me know down below. And also, is there a movie or TV series you think I should check out and score, like I did this, good or bad? Let me know down in the comments below. But that is all the time that we have for today. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel to see more. You can support me over on Patreon if you are so inclined. I am a one-man show, and I would definitely appreciate it. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next installment. Until then, goodbye.